magazine, and we're here speaking with Peter Davison, who's probably best known as being the fifth incarnation of Doctor Who, but for me, he's much better remembered as someone on All Creatures Great and Small.
That bloke on All Creatures Great and Small.
Oh yeah. What would you say you brought from your experience on All Creatures Great and Small to the Doctor?
Well, in truth, All Creatures Great and Small was largely responsible for me playing the Doctor. I worked with John Nathan Turner on that. He was what they call the production unit manager. He left shortly after we started All Creatures to become the producer of Doctor Who. And when we finished the first 3 series of All Creatures, and that we thought was it, I got a phone call about 6 months later from John and said, "How did you feel about being the next Doctor Who?" So I'm one of the fortunate doctors who's not had to actually audition at all. I just got offered the job. It was brilliant. I think he obviously wanted an element of Tristan in that Doctor. So when we met for lunch, finally I agreed to do it. Because I thought the Thor was really young, really. Looking back from this standpoint, from nowadays, I don't feel young at all because I feel like I started a trend. But so really and truly, I can't say I brought much more than a bit of Tristan's character to it. I didn't have my arm up any cows in Doctor Who, fortunately.
How much pressure did you feel following on the heels of Tom Baker?
You see, that's a question, that's a very North American question, because the pressure from my point of view was following William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, who were my doctors. So Tom was simply, in Britain, he was just number 4. But I understand that over here, largely people had started off watching Tom, and so I probably came as a bit of a shock. But certainly when I started, I wasn't really intimidated by Tom. It was the fact that I was playing an iconic part that I had grown up watching, and with William Hartnell, and then definitely with Patrick Troughton, who was my doctor.
Do you feel the new generation of Doctor Who lives up to the older incarnations?
I do, yes. I mean, I think the fantastic thing about the new series of Doctor Who is that it's run by people who grew up watching the classic Doctors. It is a case of the lunatics running the asylum, everyone in that office. I was down in Cardiff not that long ago, and you're very struck by how many people working on the new series of Doctor Who are huge fans of the series, and they love it. And that's been the case with Russell T Davies and with Stephen Moffat. They're both huge fans of the classic series.
Nice. We are a tattoo magazine, so I do have to ask you a tattoo question. How do you feel about tattoos? And if, say, your daughter were to come home with the tattoo of a TARDIS, what would be your reaction?
It's a tattoo magazine. I didn't know that. Have you got tattoos?
I have one, but I'm not allowed to show it on camera.
Really? Is it? Yes, interesting.
We would get our YouTube account banned.
I don't mind. Okay. Well, I don't mind tattoos now. When they first started appearing, I was thinking, how awful it must be. It's fine if you're young, but then you'll have a tattoo on when you're old. Now I think we've got used to it. My daughter does have a couple of tattoos. I won't tell you what they are, but anyway, but dedicated in some way to family. I don't mind them at all now. I rather like them. I did a musical recently, and when you do a musical, they have this period before you do the show of warm-up. Of course, I didn't really have to warm up because I didn't dance in this particular musical, but all the dancers, of course, are down there doing all their stretching and their limbering up. And the tattoo is a big part of, I would just sit at the back of the stage just looking at all these fantastic tattoos, bending, and it was great. I don't mind them. I mean, I don't know about when people are so completely covered in tattoos that you can't actually see anything of their skin. But no, I don't like them. Yeah, I don't think I'd had one. But that's really that's cowardly, because I had a friend who had one on her arm, a rather complicated one, and it got a bit sort of infected. She was walking around with a big bandage on. I just thought it looked painful, and I'm a bit of a wuss, really.
The show to get involved in the newer generation.
Well, I did. I've really been the only connection so far between the classic series and the new series. I did a special for Children in Need, which is a sort of charity evening on TV, and people contribute various things. And Stephen Moffat, I had him round for lunch, and he said, "Would you like to do this scene with David Tennant?" Who at that time was the Doctor. And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And it was a brilliant script because it was about two things. It was about the 10th Doctor remembering being the 5th Doctor, but also it was actually about David remembering watching me on the telly. So it was a nice little script, and it was fun to do actually. But it was nice to connect the classic series and the new series.
And one other question.
Okay.
Where did the inspiration for the celery corsage come from?
Right, well that was, I have to say, was the producer's, John Nathan Turner's idea. He came to me one day and said, "Look, I'm looking for something eccentric for you to wear on your costume, and how about a stick of celery?" And I said, "Oh great, why?" And he said, "Well, I've no idea." So I said, "As long as you explain it before I leave, that's fine." And then we cut to 3 years later, I'm doing my very last story, and I realised that he hasn't explained it. So I brought it up with him, and they put in a very quick explanation at the end of Caves of Androzani, which, if you want to know, was that the Doctor is allergic to certain gases in the praxis range, and when those gases are present, the celery will turn purple, and if he eats it, he will be saved.
I've just thrown this question together, but yesterday we had a really big long lineup outside of HalCon, and there were a lot of fans that were really thrilled to have you come out and visit them outside on the line. What gave you the idea to go speak with them?
Well, I was just, when I heard what was happening, the first message we got up on the 8th floor was that they were withdrawing the guests because they'd been sort of angry people downstairs. And I just said to them, what we need to do is get down there. We're the biggest thing that you can use to placate the crowd. So I just said, why don't I go up and down the line? This is because years ago, one of the first Doctor Who conventions in Britain at Longleat, a similar thing happened, but actually far worse. I think the BBC had estimated 1,000 people would turn up, and 10,000 people turned up. And so on that occasion as well, I said, look, I think the best thing we can do is walk up and down the line for an hour and a half or so, just to these people who would never get in. And it just seemed to, obviously, if there are people who come to see me, then obviously it's great for them. Now, I'm sure there were a lot of people in that queue who had no idea who I was. But anyway, I just went out and said, I pose for photographs and things like that. So I just know how it feels if you've been looking forward to something like that and you can't get in. And there were young children there who come along to see people, and it was just it was unfortunate. I don't think it was anyone's fault, really, except that it just something that this convention hadn't encountered before, and obviously people were cross, and I understand that, but I just thought we were the best. As I said to my personal assistant, when she said, "Are you sure you want to go out there? It could be dangerous." I said, "Look, they're not going to beat me up, they might beat you up." But I think I'm pretty safe.
Anyway, I want to thank you for doing that for all the fans. I know they were very much appreciated. And again, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
This is Ali signing off with Peter Davison at HalCon 2013.
They were once known as angels from the sky of heaven, but now